Let's jump into this first story from APnews.com. Garland appoints special counsel to investigate Biden docs. Attorney General Merrick Garland on Thursday appointed a special counsel to investigate the presence of classified documents found at President Joe Biden's home in Wilmington, Delaware, and at an unsecured office in Washington dating from his time as vice president. Robert Hur, a one-time U.S. attorney appointed by former President Donald Trump, will lead the investigation and plans to begin his work soon. His appointment marks the second time in a few months that Garland has appointed a special counsel, an extraordinary fact that reflects the Justice Department's efforts to independently conduct high-profile probes in an exceedingly heated political environment. Both of those investigations, the early one involving Trump and documents recovered from his Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida, relate to the handling of classified information, though there are notable differences between those cases. I love how the media really wants to make sure everybody knows there's notable differences, but they don't ever quite bring up the fact that PolitiFact ran this story. Quote, the minute the president speaks about it to someone, he has the ability to declassify anything at any time without any process. Mostly true, reports PolitiFact. So if that's the case, what is the issue with Donald Trump's documents? So, well, I'm curious. I mean, I think everyone's heard our thoughts on this. I'm wondering what you guys think.
I don't think the issues, that at least from what we see with the search warrant, wasn't classification. I think the issue was the fact that he, A, obstructed the investigation, allegedly, and B, the Espionage Act, which says you can't have defense documents in your possession when the government needs them. So I don't think that's what they're trying to get him on.
Trump?
Yeah, I don't think they're trying to get him on the classification issue. Maybe that changes, but from what I've read, I think they're going after him because he basically had government documents.
I think one of the big challenges with the Trump thing is that we've heard from the Trump side of things and from early reports that they were cooperating, that they did let them come in, and it was actually the FBI's own lock. So the FBI comes in and says, hey, you have these documents, just make sure you lock them up. And they're like, you got it, boss. Then the FBI comes back later, smashes the lock, and takes the documents.
Yeah, so what happened was, January, he leaves office. In May, the National Archives is like, hey, listen, we believe you have documents. And I don't know if they gave him a list of documents they thought he had, but they said, you have documents, we'd like them back. And then it took 7 more months. Trump's lawyers, I think it was in December of 2021, said, okay, well, we found some documents. Then in January, they said, here's 15 boxes of documents. And the following months, I think it was February of 2022, the National Archives comes back and says, we still didn't get all of them. You still have more. We need more documents. And they go back and forth. And apparently, the National Archives wasn't satisfied with how Trump's team was cooperating. So they got a grand jury subpoena in the spring. And then they visited Mar-a-Lago, and Trump's team allowed them to search the basement, I believe, the basement storage room, and they came out there with more documents. And the lawyer signs a declaration saying, we've searched the entire place, no more documents are here.
And it turns out there were more documents.
There are more documents there.
But I suppose the issue is the president has plenary declassification powers. I mean, he, as the president, he is the end-all, be-all of what is classified or what isn't.
Yeah, but you also got to look at, like, what's the damage to the country? So, like, is he taking compartmentalized documents that there's one copy of that somebody else in government now, maybe in the Biden administration, might need for whatever they're working on? Is it a danger to the country? And we don't know. We don't know if that's the case or not. But I think that, like, to figure that out would be big to just understand the situation.
I can agree. I mean, if there's like a single copy of it and they're like, whoa, what happened to these files, would be really bad. But that'd be really bad outside of Trump just having them, because what are we doing not having important copies? But that still doesn't answer the question of the reason the president can declassify anything instantly is because imagine he's negotiating with Vladimir Putin to, like, get out of Ukraine. And then he has to go there and be like, well, you know, I would negotiate on troop positioning in Poland or whatever, but it's classified, so I can't tell you about it. Like, that makes no sense. He needs to literally be like, okay, here's where our shipments and troops are going in. We'll take those out if you take this out. So he has to be able to do that. So this looks just overtly political. But even so, outside of that, I can certainly understand an argument of, like, the greater good, like whether or not Trump has the power to do it. maybe we should get those documents back, but then why pursue a criminal investigation? And then you get the media coming out and saying Trump is under criminal investigation, but Joe Biden his documents are facing a special counsel. They didn't even say he's facing it.
I think with Trump, though, I don't think he was under criminal investigation until he didn't turn over the documents at the National Archives.
But he doesn't have to.
Well, he does if the government says they're their documents.
But if the president
even they're not classified, he still has to turn them over. If the National Archives says these are government documents, we need them back. They're not your personal documents.
I suppose I can understand the argument you're making that they're property of, but that's an argument where we'd have to actually look into determine whether or not he made copies of these documents. But my understanding was that he has copies of them as the president, and some of the documents were like his presidential briefings and stuff like that, which if he can declassify, then he can have. But at any rate, if that was the case, pursuing criminal charges because he's like, I disagree on whether you own this piece of paper is kind of silly.
Yeah, so you can't have copies of compartmentalized documents. So like classified documents, there could be multiple copies and several people could have them. But if they're compartmentalized, there's only usually one copy as far as I understand. So if he had that, he would have had to have taken it out of the compartment or wherever it's at and brought it back to Mar-a-Lago, and then somebody else can't gain access to that. So there actually is only one copy as far as I know.
Well, I guess we have to get into what all of the documents are.
Yeah, and then when were the documents
right?
taken? If they were taken after he was January 20th, when he was leaving the White House, maybe he was no longer president when he took them. So you need that information.
And I'm pretty sure they have copy machines in Washington, D.C., to be a little facetious here. But more importantly, it's kind of convenient that the burden of proof is it's classified. We can't tell you, but there was only one of us, and we really, really needed it. For what? We can't tell you.
Yeah, and we won't ever know. Right?
For me personally, I don't think we should give the burden of doubt to the DOJ. That clearly is very political, especially when it came to what happened with Biden. They found Biden's documents on November 2nd. A week before the midterm elections. We're now hearing about it. I think this would have had an effect on the election, and I think this is why the DOJ has been politicized, because this is one clear example of it.
And not just that, it's the vice president and Hillary Clinton in both Secretary of State. Separate instances do not have the power of declassification.
Well, so
Biden,
the vice president does. So there was a 2003 executive order by George Bush, I believe. I believe Obama had another executive order in 2009, which says the vice president and the president can both classify documents, and the vice president can declassify documents that he classified. And also, if he is deemed in a supervisory role over the agent who classified it, he can declassify it. So, I mean, if there are random documents, maybe he didn't have it depends what a supervisory role is, and I don't think there's really a clear definition of that. Is the vice president in the executive branch a supervisor of, an agent in the CIA? We don't know. I don't know. I think that's something that would have to be determined by a judge or.
I do have this. I pulled it up. This is from the Washington Times. A March 2003 executive order signed by George W. Bush empowered the vice president to classify sensitive materials. That same executive order grants declassification powers to, quote, the official who authorized the original classification or a supervisor official. Under the executive order, vice presidents are granted the power to declassify documents they classified themselves, but it's unclear if the vice president would be viewed as a supervisory official with the ability to declassify sensitive documents from the CIA and other intelligence agencies. I just think it's really convenient that we got probably 300 articles arguing that Donald Trump would have to forfeit any office or that he was disqualified for having classified documents. Literally, not even the argument of, compartmentalization. It was like, if he had classified documents, he violated the Records Act or whatever. And then as soon as it happens with Joe Biden, then it happens twice, all of a sudden there's a debate over, actually the vice president, the president can declassify things. It sounds like a cop-out.
Well, I think it kind of depends on intent, right? So, did Trump take them purposely out of the White House or wherever and store them at Mar-a-Lago? I think we know more of his intent just because of the fact that he refused to turn them over knowing that he had these documents.
I disagree. I mean, the documents were in boxes of random things like briefings and Time magazine clippings. It really does sound like in both instances of Biden and Trump, they had boxes of paperwork they just carried out, not realizing what was in it.
Yeah, I think until we see more information, you have to assume that he didn't intentionally do it, right? Neither of them intentionally did it, unless you have, witnesses that saw him or heard him say, no, we have to keep these. We don't want to turn them over to the National Archives because they're mine. I believe they're mine. The government shouldn't have a right to take them. So I think we have to hear the information that comes out. We have to see the evidence, and I guess we'll eventually see that. I don't know how long it's going to take.
I'd like to repeal this executive order. In the meantime, George Bush gave Dick Cheney way too much power. He let him run the war, basically. Let him put his Halliburton company in Iraq to make all this money. And this stupid, stupid rule that he gave the vice president with no command authority the ability to classify and declassify info is insane.
Yeah, well, Dick Cheney was pretty much the president. He's pretty much calling the shots here. Let's just be real here. But the little that we know about these classified documents, and I don't think we're going to learn more about them because the DOJ clearly is very political. They clearly have a side here. So I don't see them releasing any kind of more information here. I mean, we'll see what happens. I'm always skeptical, but the few things that we do know is that they were related to Ukraine, to Iran, and the United Kingdom. So these were specific documents dealing with intelligence, foreign services, what's happening internationally. So I think with that context, especially with where they were located at a think tank that's connected to Chinese money, there is some possible questions here about what information was shared, who got it, especially with the big business ties between Ukraine and the Bidens, the Chinese government and the Bidens. I think there's a lot more room for a lot more corruption here, especially with Biden being a career politician rather than Donald Trump, who's kind of been obfuscated away from politics and kind of pushed away from everybody. That's my initial kind of reaction. What do you guys think?
I think that I definitely agree. I think there should be a special counsel and there should be an investigation. So I think they're handling both Trump and Biden the correct way. Special counsels. I mean, you can say that the DOJ is politicized, but it's an independent special counsel being appointed. I think he was actually appointed by Trump, this her guy.
I think the attorney general that's overseeing it in one of the jurisdictions was appointed by Trump, but I don't know about the special counsel guy, to be honest.
I think her was a Trump nominee or a Trump appointment. I don't know. I guess it's
what's
an
the
appointment.
name? Her?
Robert Hur.
Yeah. So I think we just got to wait and see, and I hope they investigate Biden just as vigorously as they're investigating Trump, and we figure this out. I don't think many Democrats disagree that we should figure out all the facts behind this. And it could be good, it could be bad. Whatever it is, I think it's important we know, right?
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.